March 15th, 2021, 8:07:43 p.m. My game just hit #1 on the App Store. But instead of celebrating with champagne, I was sitting in my beat-up Honda Civic, hands shaking, staring at my laptop screen. Because 15 minutes earlier, I'd tried to log into our game's back-end server, the one I'd built from scratch, and found myself locked out. New passwords, new admin, new company name on the dashboard. My partner had changed everything while I was asleep. In that moment, watching my game climb the charts while I couldn't even access my own code, I realized I'd been played. What followed was an 18-month legal war that would cost me everything and win me back even more. If you've ever had an idea, built something from nothing, or trusted the wrong person with your creation, this story is your worst nightmare and your best education rolled into one. Every developer, every creator, every entrepreneur lives with the same paralyzing fear. What if someone steals my work? What if your partner, your co-founder, or even your best friend is secretly planning to cut you out? What if being the idea person or the technical person isn't enough to protect what you've built? In the next 20 minutes, you're going to learn the exact legal weapons that saved my career. Not theory, actual evidence that won in court. You'll discover why that casual email from 2 years ago became worth $10 million, why Git commits are legal documents, why metadata is your best friend, and, most importantly, how to structure partnerships so this never happens to you. This isn't a cautionary tale told by a lawyer who's never coded. This is a developer who lived through hell, fought back with precision, and won everything. I'm going to show you the actual legal strategies, the actual documents, and the actual courtroom moments that turned corporate theft into corporate justice. Let me take you back to September 2019. Picture this, a cramped Seattle apartment, barely 500 square feet, with a desk crammed between my bed and the kitchen counter. That desk was my entire universe. 3 monitors, a mechanical keyboard that clicked loud enough to annoy my neighbors, and a dream that kept me coding until my eyes burned. I was building Neon Drift Racing. Not just another racing game, this was something special. I'd figured out a time rewind mechanic that nobody had done quite right before. You know that feeling when you take a corner too fast and crash? In my game, you could rewind time, but here's the twist. Your ghost car would still be there, racing alongside you, creating this incredible multiplayer feel even in single-player mode. It was beautiful, it was innovative, and it was entirely mine. 16 hours a day, I lived in that chair. My savings account was bleeding out, $1,200 for rent, another few hundred for utilities, and I was basically living on instant ramen and the occasional splurge on Red Bull. But I didn't care. Every line of code felt like I was building my future. Every bug I fixed was a step closer to something bigger than myself. And here's something that would save my life later. I documented everything. Every single thing. GitHub commits at 2 a.m. with detailed messages about what I'd changed and why. Design documents written in Google Docs with timestamps. Development blogs I posted on my personal website that nobody read, but they showed my thinking process, my struggles, my breakthroughs. I even recorded myself coding sometimes, these boring live streams on Twitch with maybe 2 viewers, usually just my mom and my cousin. I thought I was building a portfolio. Turns out, I was building evidence. By December, I had a working prototype. My friends couldn't put it down. One of them, Jake, played it for 6 hours straight and said it was better than anything on the App Store. That's when I knew I had something real. But I also knew my weakness. I could code, I could create, but I couldn't sell water in a desert. Marketing was this foreign language I didn't speak. Business development might as well have been rocket science. That's when I met Marcus, December 15th, 2019. There was this startup meetup in downtown Seattle, one of those events where everybody's pitching something and drinking craft beer while pretending to network. I almost didn't go. Social events aren't exactly my comfort zone, but Jake dragged me there, said I needed to start putting myself out there if I wanted my game to succeed. Marcus was everything I wasn't. Tall, confident, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and somehow end up being everyone's best friend within an hour. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect pitch. When he saw me demoing my game in the corner to a couple of people, he pushed through the crowd and watched over my shoulder. "Holy shit," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is incredible. Who built this?" When I told him it was just me, his eyes lit up like I just told him he won the lottery. He started talking fast, throwing around words like monetization strategy and user acquisition and whale targeting. He knew the mobile gaming industry inside and out, told me about his experience launching apps, his connections with influencers, his understanding of the App Store algorithm. "You're a genius developer," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder like we'd known each other for years. "But you need a business mind. I've launched 12 apps. I know every investor in Seattle. I can get this in front of the right people. Let's be partners." The word partners felt like salvation. Finally, someone who could handle all the stuff that made my brain hurt while I focused on what I loved, making the game better. We shook hands right there, surrounded by the noise of the meetup, and I thought I was the luckiest developer in the world. Red flag number 1 should have been when Marcus insisted on handling all the paperwork to keep things simple. He said he'd done this before, knew all the right lawyers, could get us set up properly. I was grateful. Legal stuff made me nervous. Let Marcus handle the boring business stuff while I handled the code, right? Division of labor. It made so much sense at the time. The next few months were golden. Marcus moved into a WeWork space and got me a desk right next to his. Every morning, he'd show up with coffee and this infectious energy that made me believe we were building something huge. He'd take calls with potential investors while I optimized the physics engine. He'd write marketing copy while I designed new tracks. He'd research competitor apps while I built our multiplayer infrastructure. He was good at his job, I'll give him that. By February, we had 1,000 beta testers. Marcus had gotten micro-influencers to play early builds. He'd negotiated a featuring deal with a gaming blog. The buzz was building. And through it all, he kept saying the same thing. "This is going to change our lives, brother. We're going to be millionaires." Marcus set up a company called Neon Games LLC. He showed me the paperwork, said it was for both of us, just a formality for the App Store submission. I barely looked at it. Why would I? We were partners. We were building this together. He was handling the business side, just like we agreed. Red flag number 2 was how vague he always was about equity documents. Every time I brought up formalizing our partnership agreement, he'd wave it off. "We'll handle that when we close funding," he'd say. Or, "Let's wait until after launch when we know what we're really worth." Always later, always tomorrow, always after the next milestone. And I let it slide because I trusted him. Because we were partners. Because only bad people screw over their friends, and Marcus was my friend, right? But here's the thing about evidence. Sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places. January 20th, 2020, I sent Marcus a long email about a technical problem I was having with the multiplayer code. I was frustrated, thinking about scrapping the whole feature. Marcus wrote back this motivational message about believing in my vision, pushing through the hard times. And then, buried in the middle of that email, he wrote one sentence that would later be worth $10 million. "This is 100% your creation. I'm just here to sell it." He probably forgot he ever wrote it. Just a throwaway line meant to boost my confidence. But my lawyer would later call it the smoking gun. Proof, in Marcus's own words, that he knew I was the sole creator. February turned to March. The game was almost ready. Marcus was handling the App Store submission, setting up the payment processing, all the technical business stuff that made my head spin. I was fixing last-minute bugs, optimizing load times, making sure everything was perfect. We were both sleeping maybe 4 hours a night, running on pure adrenaline and the promise of success. Launch day was March 1st, 2021. Marcus scheduled it for 3 p.m. Pacific, optimal for catching both US and Asian markets. I watched from my apartment, refreshing the App Store charts every 30 seconds. Within an hour, we were in the top 100. By midnight, top 50. By the next morning, we'd broken into the top 10. The numbers were insane. 50,000 downloads in the first 24 hours. 100,000 by day 3. The in-app purchases were flying. People were buying car skins, track packs, time skip boosters. Marcus was screaming with joy on the phone, saying we'd already made more than his projections for the entire first month. That weekend, we hit number 1. Marcus said we should celebrate, take a break. We'd been grinding for months, and now the game was live, making money on autopilot. He was flying to Vegas, said I should come, but honestly, I just wanted to sleep for a week. Plus, I wanted to monitor the servers, make sure everything stayed stable with all these new users. Marcus laughed, called me a workaholic, said he'd celebrate enough for both of us. That was March 13th. 2 days later, everything fell apart. March 15th, 7:28 p.m. I was doing routine server maintenance, just checking logs, making sure our database wasn't getting hammered too hard. I tried to SSH into our back-end server, the one I'd personally configured, the one I'd been accessing every single day for 6 months. Access denied. Wrong password. That's weird, I thought. Maybe I fat-fingered it. Tried again. Access denied. Tried the backup admin account. Access denied. My heart started racing. Had we been hacked? I tried to log into our AWS console. The password had been changed. Tried to reset it through email. The recovery email had been changed too. I called Marcus, straight to voicemail. Texted him, "Hey, did you change the server passwords?" No response. Called again. Nothing. Finally, I managed to get into our app dashboard through an old session that was still active on my laptop. That's when I saw it. The company name had been changed. Instead of Neon Games LLC, it now said Marcus Tech Incorporated. The bank account information all changed. The contact email, LOC, changed to something I'd never seen before. My game, the thing I'd built with my own hands, was no longer mine. I drove to the WeWork space, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the steering wheel. Marcus's desk was cleaned out, completely empty except for a sticky note that said, "Thanks for everything, M." I called him again. This time he picked up. "Hey buddy," he said, casual as anything, like he hadn't just stolen my entire life's work. "How's it going?" "Marcus, what the hell is happening? Why can't I access the servers? Why is the company name changed?" There was a pause. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "It's just business, man. I filed all the paperwork, the copyrights, the trademarks, they're all in my name. I mean, technically, I hired you as a contractor to build the game. I've got all the documentation." "That's insane," I screamed into the phone. "I built everything, every line of code. And I paid for the WeWork space. I handled all the business setup. I marketed it. Without me, it's just code sitting on your hard drive. Look, I'm willing to cut you a check, 20 grand as a thank you. That's more than fair for contract work, $20,000. For a game that had already made 10 times that in its first week, I'm going to sue you," I said. "With what money?" Marcus replied. "And even if you could afford a lawyer, what proof do you have? I've got all the paperwork. You've got, what? Some code on your laptop? Good luck with that." He hung up. I sat in that WeWork parking lot until 3 a.m., just staring at my phone, refreshing the App Store charts, watching my game climb higher and higher under someone else's name. Every download was money in Marcus's pocket. Every 5-star review was praise for something he'd stolen. I'd never felt more helpless in my entire life. But here's the thing about developers. We're problem solvers by nature, and this was just another problem to solve, even if it wasn't written in code. The next morning, I started making calls. Most lawyers wanted a $5,000 retainer just to look at the case, money I didn't have. But the fourth lawyer I called, a woman named Sarah Chen who specialized in intellectual property, agreed to meet me for a free consultation. I'll never forget what she said after I showed her everything. My GitHub history, my development logs, my emails with Marcus, and especially that smoking gun email where he admitted it was 100% my creation. "This isn't just winnable," she said. "This is a slam dunk. I'll take it on contingency. I get 30% of whatever we recover, but you pay nothing up front." And that's when my education in intellectual property law really began. See, here's what most people don't understand about code and copyright. The moment you write original code, it's automatically copyrighted to you. You don't need to file anything. You don't need to register it. The act of creation itself gives you ownership. It's like writing a song or painting a picture. The creator owns it from the moment it exists. The problem is proving you're the creator. This is where my obsessive documentation saved me. Every Git commit was time-stamped. Every push to GitHub showed exactly what I'd written and when. My development blogs, those boring posts nobody read, they showed my thought process evolving over months. Those Twitch streams where I coded live, absolute proof that I was the one writing the code. Marcus had made a critical error. He thought that because he'd registered the copyrights and trademarks in his name, he owned everything. But registration isn't ownership. It's just a claim of ownership. And claims can be challenged when you have evidence. Sarah built our case methodically. First, we subpoenaed all of Marcus's records, his emails, his text messages, his financial documents, and that's when we found gold. Not only did we have his email admitting I was the sole creator, but we found dozens of other messages where he referred to it as your game when talking to investors. We found text to his girlfriend saying, "My developer is almost done with the game." My developer, not my partner, my developer. We also did something called code analysis. Sarah brought in an expert who could look at the coding style, the variable naming conventions, the comment patterns, and definitively say this was all written by one person. And that person's style matched perfectly with other code I'd written before I ever met Marcus. But the real nail in the coffin was the financial records. Marcus claimed he'd hired me as a contractor, but he'd never paid me a single dollar. No invoices, no 1,099 forms, no payment history. How do you hire a contractor without paying them? You don't. You partner with them. And partners have rights. The lawsuit was filed in federal court for the Western District of Washington. 3 counts: copyright infringement, breach of fiduciary duty, and fraud. We weren't just asking for damages. We were asking for the entire company to be transferred to me. Marcus hired a big law firm, 3 lawyers in expensive suits who tried every trick in the book. They filed motion after motion trying to get the case dismissed. They claimed I was a disgruntled contractor. They said the code was work for hire. They even tried to argue that the game's success was entirely due to Marcus's marketing, not my code. But evidence doesn't lie. And we had mountains of it. The trial took 4 days in September 2022. I sat in that courtroom watching Marcus lie with a straight face, claiming he'd given me the idea for the game, that he'd directed the development, that he'd even written some of the code himself. His lawyers presented a few sketches he'd drawn on napkins as proof of his creative input. Then Sarah cross-examined him. "Mr. Marcus, can you explain what a singleton pattern is?" That's a technical term. Your client claims he wrote code for this game. Surely he knows basic programming patterns. Can you tell me what language the game is written in? It's JavaScript? It's C number, actually. Mr. Marcus, can you show the court a single file, a single function, even a single line of code you personally wrote? He couldn't. Then Sarah pulled up the smoking gun email on the courtroom projector. That beautiful, damning sentence in 72-point font. "This is 100% your creation. I'm just here to sell it." Mr. Marcus, do you recognize this email? His face went white. "Did you write these words?" That was taken out of context. It's a yes or no question. "Did you write these words?" "Yes, but no further questions." My turn on the stand was 8 hours over 2 days. Marcus's lawyers tried to tear me apart. They questioned every decision, every piece of code, every design choice. But here's the beautiful thing about truth. It's consistent. When you're telling the truth, your story doesn't change. Every question they asked, I had an answer backed by evidence. Why didn't you formalize the partnership agreement? I trusted Marcus. He said he was handling it. Why didn't you register the copyrights yourself? I didn't know I needed to. I thought we were partners. Can you prove you wrote this code? Here's 200 hours of Twitch footage showing me writing it live. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood up and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Copyright infringement, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud. The damages were incredible. $10 million in lost profits. Every penny the game had made since launch. $5 million in punitive damages. Punishment for the deliberate theft. But the real victory was the injunction. The judge ordered the immediate transfer of all assets, including the company, the game, all trademarks, and all profits, back to me. I'll never forget the look on Marcus's face when the judge read that part. He'd thought, even if he lost, he'd keep the company and just have to pay me some money. Instead, he lost everything. But the best part? The enforcement. 2 weeks after the verdict, U.S. Marshals accompanied me to Marcus's new office. He'd moved into a fancy space in downtown Seattle with my money, glass walls, designer furniture, a team of 12 employees he'd hired to manage his game. The Marshals made him hand over everything. Server passwords, bank account access, social media logins, even the keys to the office. His employees, who had no idea the game was stolen, watched in shock as their boss was forced to transfer everything to me. "This is theft," Marcus kept saying. "This is my company." "No, sir," the marshal replied. "According to the federal court, this gentleman is the rightful owner. You can step aside, or I can arrest you for contempt." Marcus stepped aside. Within an hour, I had control of everything. My game, my company, my life's work, all back where it belonged. The $15 million in damages would come later through wage garnishment and asset seizure. But honestly, getting my game back meant more than any amount of money. Marcus's reputation in the tech world was destroyed. The trial made tech news. His name became synonymous with the worst kind of betrayal. Last I heard, he was selling real estate in Florida, unable to find work in tech. Sometimes I Google him, just to make sure he's still failing. I'm not proud of that, but I'm not ashamed either. The game is still successful. I hired a real team, people I pay fairly, people who know exactly what their equity is because everything is in writing. We've launched 2 sequels and a spin-off. The company is worth about $40 million now, and every single piece of paper is triple-checked by lawyers. But let me tell you what I really learned from this, the stuff that goes beyond legal documents and courtroom drama. First, trust is not a business strategy. It doesn't matter how much you like someone, how good they are at their job, or how much they help you. Without legal documentation, trust is just a word. Get everything in writing. Every agreement, every decision, every promise. Not because you expect betrayal, but because clarity prevents conflict. Second, your work has inherent value from the moment you create it. You don't need to register it. If you built it, you own it. But ownership without proof is just a claim. Document your creation process obsessively. Save every email, every sketch, every version. Storage is cheap, lawsuits are expensive, evidence is priceless. Third, copyright registration isn't ownership, but it is important. After I got my game back, the first thing I did was register everything properly. It doesn't give you ownership, but it does give you additional legal remedies and the ability to seek statutory damages. It's like insurance. You hope you never need it, but you're glad it's there. Fourth, understand the difference between an employee, a contractor, and a partner. Marcus tried to claim I was a contractor, but contractors get paid. He tried to avoid calling me a partner, but partners share control. He wanted it both ways and got neither. Fifth, if someone insists on handling all the business stuff to keep things simple, run. Complexity in business isn't a bug, it's a feature. It protects everyone involved. The only person who benefits from keeping things simple is the person planning to screw you. Sixth, verbal agreements are worth the paper they're not written on. I don't care if you're dealing with your best friend, your brother, or your grandmother. If it involves money, ownership, or your life's work, write it down, sign it, and get it notarized. Seventh, if you can't afford a lawyer at the beginning, you definitely can't afford not having one later. There are lawyers who work on contingency. There are legal aid societies. There are law school clinics. Find a way to get legal advice before you sign anything or agree to anything. But here's the most important thing, and I want you to really hear this. The fact that Marcus betrayed me doesn't mean everyone will betray you. The fact that I was naive doesn't mean trust is always wrong. The lesson isn't to become paranoid or to work alone forever. The lesson is to trust with verification, to believe in people while protecting yourself, to collaborate while maintaining clarity. I still work with partners. I still collaborate with other developers. I still believe in the power of working together to build something bigger than what we could create alone. But now everything is documented. Now everyone knows exactly what they own, what they're responsible for, and what happens if things go wrong. It's not cynical, it's professional. And you know what? My new partnerships are actually stronger because of this clarity. There's no ambiguity, no assumptions, no hidden resentments. Everyone knows where they stand, and that creates real trust. Trust based on transparency, not just hope. If you're building something right now, whether it's an app, a game, a business, or just an idea, please learn from my mistakes. Your ideas have value. Your work has worth. Your creations deserve protection, not because everyone is out to steal them, but because the people who are out to steal them are really good at seeming trustworthy. Marcus taught me that the most dangerous person in your life isn't the obvious enemy. It's the charming friend who says all the right things while positioning themselves to take everything. The one who makes you feel guilty for wanting documentation. The one who's always going to formalize things tomorrow. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it today, right now. After you finish watching this video, go document your work. Register your copyrights. Write down your agreements, save your emails, back up your code, create your evidence trail, not because you're planning for war, but because you're ensuring peace. Marcus thought he was stealing a game, but what he actually stole was my trust in human decency. The court gave me back my game, my company, and $15 million. But what I really won was bigger, proof that documentation beats deception, that preparation beats piracy, and that sometimes, just sometimes, David doesn't just beat Goliath, he takes Goliath's entire kingdom. If this story helped you, or warned you, or just entertained you for 20 minutes, hit that like button. Drop a comment about your own experiences with partnership betrayals. And subscribe to Casebound for more real-life legal thrillers where karma actually wins. Remember, your ideas have value, your work has worth, and anyone who tries to steal them, they better lawyer up.